everybody. Such a blessing to be here, and I just want to thank Pastor Gavin and Wendy and Rory and Dee Dee and for Rory for getting in touch with me. When he did get in touch with me, I did think it was a bit strange at first, until I read down and he used Pastor John, my pastor, as that he spoke here, and I was like, right, I'm in. You know, I want to say the two testimonies before us, what powerful testimonies, and praise the Lord for what He's done in both your lives. You know what I mean, and He's done very well. You know what I mean. I'd like to share my testimony as well, and like Nathan says, I'm not here to glorify the enemy's work. I'm here to glorify God. But like Nathan, I want to bring you back to how it all started. I'm from Dublin, as you can get with the accent. I was born into a single parent family. My father was quite wealthy. I'd start off with my mother. She was in the Magdalene homes from the age of 12 until she was 18 when she met my father. She got married. This was a girl that was troubled, thought that she found, hope and love. He got her pregnant when she was pregnant with me. There was complications. They didn't think I was going to live. So for the whole 9 months, she was in the hospital. During this time, my father basically sold the house, sold everything, and left her homeless. So she had to move into the Regina Charley Hostel, which is a women's hostel in Dublin, and that's where I was reared for the first 6 years of my life. My mother suffered with mental illness. She had schizophrenia, manic depressive, and multiple personality disorders. We got a flat out in Coolock when I was about 6. And my mum was a very troubled person, so she was very aggressive. She would beat me daily. When I was 6 years of age, she started to sexually abuse me. And this went on into my teens. She would beat me and tell me not to tell anybody. She used to tell me that she could kill me and get away with it because of her illness. And during this time, like through my whole life, she'd be in hospital, a psychiatric unit, she'd be sectioned, she'd be in there for 3 months. I'd be moved I had no family, we had no family. I'd be moved to care home, so I'd be 3 months in one, then 3 months in another. My mother would come back, she'd be okay for 6 months, 7 months. In this time of this 6 months, 7 months, I'd be beaten. And when I mean beaten, there was hurleys broke over my back. She would threaten me with weapons. She used to have a trolley bar. The trolley, the bar and the trolley, she wrapped it in duct tape and she'd beat me. And she'd tell me that if I was to tell anybody that, she'd kill me. And I was to say that I was being bullied. And that's what I was doing. And this went on, and then the sexual abuse started happening. And again, she'd tell me not to tell anybody. I felt silence. I had no family. I just felt like I was lost. And in school, I started to get bullied because, I was quite, I suppose I was messed up really, wasn't I? I wasn't a popular kid. And at home in the flats, I'd be picked on, and I'd be beaten. So I was beaten at home, I was beaten in school at a small age, and then at home. So one of the times I was taken off my mum, and I was put into a foster care. And to me, as a kid, I thought this was, this was brilliant. Everything was going to stop. And when I went into this foster home, I was there for 1.5 years, and they started to beat me. And I'd get beaten for everything that their children were doing. And I remember in this home, I was so lost and I was so broken. And this is a kid. Violence was just around me, and I just came to think that violence was the norm. And these foster parents used to beat me. They used to beat me with a fish slice. I used to wet the bed out of fear. And what the foster father used to do, he used to fill the bath every time I wet the bed, and he'd get my head and he'd push it into the bath. He'd pull it out and he'd get the wet sheet and rub it into my face and tell me how dirty I was. And this happened every night. And as you're a kid, it causes more fear. It caused me to wet the bed more, and this just happened to be just a regular thing now. And I remember the morning I went down and I took some cornflakes without asking. And I got one of the beatings with the fish slice. And I remember lying on the floor. Now, I come from the flats. We didn't have tiles. We had lino. Lino or carpet. You were posh if you had carpet, but we had lino. And I remember I was beaten, and I lay on that floor, and I remember the cold tiles just easing the pain on my back as I lay there. And I remember just thinking, like, as a kid, I want to die. I want to die. I really want to die. And, my mum went to court. There was a court case to get me back. What happened was, I was beaten. I was black and blue one time. My mum started to get weekend visits with me. They brought her. I went to my mum. I went with the bruises. She was bathing me. She seen all the bruises. She panicked. She said that she panicked, and she didn't say anything to the social worker. So when I went back on the Sunday to the foster home, they said that I came back with the bruises, and now they were going for full custody of me. This was devastating to me. I didn't want to be there. I really didn't, because you know what I mean. It's just it was horrible. But your mum went to court. You know what I mean. The court case went on, and it was discovered that they were beating me, and my mum got me back. Now, going back to my mum, it was the same thing, you know. For the first few weeks, it was nothing. Things are going to change. I promise you this. I promise you that. And then the illness would start again. She'd stop taking her tablets. The beatings happened again, and the abuse happened again. So this is the way life was. This is what it was for me. And then when I was about 12, 13, at a young age, I started to find drugs. I started to, in the flats around, like, drugs was they were really available. I started to take drugs. Started off with weed, or hash at the time, with speed, and this is what I done. And I started to take drugs, and I discovered that this was a way to forget about everything that was happening. This is, you can take these drugs, and for how many hours, you were free. You were free. And my mom was in hospital, and I was going to, as I said, to different homes, and each home I went to, they just couldn't control me. They just didn't know how to deal with me. No one knew how to deal with me. And and my mom got into a relationship with a woman, and back in the 80s and 90s, it's frowned upon. You know what I mean? So it had to be kept secret. And one of the days, we used to go out to hers on the weekend. So my mom would be in the flats where we were. On the weekends, we'd go out to a place called Fairhouse and stay with my mom's girlfriend. And one of the days, I was going to my room, and Anne that was her name, Anne, my mom's partner. She was leaving, and I seen them kiss goodbye. And my mom, I heard Anne say, "You've got to stop him from talking. You've got to stop him from talking." And she did, and she came in and she beat me. I lay on that ground, and I remember saying, "This is it. This is it. I'm going to die here. I'm going to die." And I remember even thinking at that age, I want to die. I want to die. And my mom said that I wasn't to tell anybody. They went then and said about sending me to a child psychiatrist, because they wanted to make me out that there was something wrong with me. They wanted me that if I was to talk, people would think I'm disturbed, I'm attention seeking, because my mom created this world to everybody that we were a happy home. And I was I was silenced. I was silenced as a kid. I had nowhere to go, and that's the way it is. And I learned, I started to get this hatred for people, a hatred for people, and an anger, and especially towards women. Because I'm looking at my mom, and I'm looking at everything that she's done, and I thought every woman, this is what women are. This is what women are like. And I started to get that. And gangs, about 13 years of age, gangs started to see this. They started to see this anger, this aggression. And you know what I mean? And they preyed on me. They used to start giving me free drugs, and they used to start asking me to do things, And I remember, for the next few years, that's what it was. It was running, giving drugs out for them, doing what I needed to do. Then at 16, my mom came to me on a Tuesday, and she said, "We're moving to England." And I was like, "England?" And she goes, "I've never been out of the country." She got a letter from her sister that she hadn't heard for in 30 years. And my mom decided, this is my mom's thinking, maybe to my mom it was like, if we move away from everything that's happened. It's a new life. Maybe that was what her thinking was. And she said to me, "We're moving." I didn't want to move. But then she promised me that we were going to move, and it was going to be a new start. No one knew us. And I'm thinking, the beatings will stop. The beatings will stop. This is my escape. And she told me on a Tuesday, and we were going on that Thursday, and she told me I couldn't tell anybody. Again, you're not allowed to tell. You can't say goodbye. We ran away. We met this woman. Her sister came over for a month before we moved over, and that was the only part we knew her. That's the only bit that we knew about her. And we moved, but I seen it as, yeah, this is it. I'm getting away. I went over there, and things were okay for a few weeks, and then everything started again. The beatings, the abuse started, but this time the beatings were getting more and more and more because we were living with her sister, and she didn't want her sister to know what she was like. So the threats came, the same thing. She was going in the hospital, she was being sectioned. You know, every time I came home, like from school or out, I didn't know if my mom, if the police were going to be there to section her, or so every second of my life it could be changed in a second. I didn't know. So I couldn't deal with things in England, or if my mom's living with my mom because it was meant to be new. So I ran away in London. I ran away and I was homeless. I didn't know anybody. I knew I was 6 months maybe in the country. I didn't know anybody. And I left, and I was on the streets. I just went around just doing what you need to do. Stealing for drugs, you know what I mean, drugs. Now, at this stage, I'm taking heroin, I'm smoking crack, you know what I mean, I'm taking whatever I can to just fill this void. And, you know, I met these two girls, two lesbians again, and they asked me to move in with them, and I moved in, and they introduced me to like ecstasy, and I started doing ecstasy, and I started going to clubs, and I thought, you know what I mean, if anyone, you know what I mean, has ever done ecstasy, it just brings you out of this world. It really does. It gives you so much confidence. It just makes you feel really good. And I started to do that. And then again, when I was over there, I started to come across other fellas, and you know what I mean, they started the gangs again. I still had that hate and that hurt, and they reeled me in again. Because listen, when gangs prey on children, it's grooming. That's what it is, it's grooming. And that's what they started doing to me, because they seen this in me again. And you know what I mean? And they said, you know, the usual, if you want, we'll give you drugs. If you do this for us, you do that for us. And I did. And then at 16, I ended up getting into trouble, and I was sent to prison, a juvenile in England. Didn't know anybody in the jail, never knew jail. I was in England. At the time, this was 1996. There was still a lot of thing between Ireland and England. And here I was going into a jail. I was scared, I was petrified and alone. And I went into jail, you know what I mean? In there, you know what I mean? It's a breeding place for meeting new criminals. You know what I mean? I came across fellas in there, and I got contacts. You know what I mean? I came out, and now, you know what I mean? I had numbers, I had people, and I started to mingle and work for these people. And all of a sudden I felt accepted. I felt loved. I've got to protect you, because they were like, if anyone comes near you, we've got your back. We die for you. Their famous word, we'll die for you. You know what I mean? And that's what they do, and that's what they told me, and I believed them. But you know what I mean? I had to start doing things. I had to start doing horrible things. You know what I mean? When people owed debts, you know what I mean? They sent me. You know what I mean? And I started to see money. I came from nothing. I came from poor. And all of a sudden I had an anger, and I hated people. And I enjoyed hurting people. And now I can make money. I can make money from hurting people. So I done it. And I kept doing it. But when you get involved in gangs, you know what I mean? The level of violence goes higher. The level of threats against you gets higher. Even though I was going out doing all these things, but when you're going to somebody, threatening somebody for money, and you know what I mean, they don't have that money. You mean their mind is not in a good place, and when you say you're coming back next week, you know what I mean, you don't know what you're going back to. So the paranoia, and you know what I mean, and I had to start being this person, being this really aggressive and doing horrible things to people. But really, inside I knew that wasn't me. So I'd take more drugs to black out what I was doing. You mean the attacks came, there's been attacks on my life, there's been hits put on my life. I had to wear a bulletproof vest and carry a gun all the time with me. I had to sleep with weapons under my pillow. My house was attacked. I've been stabbed multiple times. I mean, my life just was so messed up. My drug addiction was getting worse, and now I was being used. I was caught up in a world that I wasn't belonging to. I was scared, but I had to be what they wanted me to be. So I had to become, if I was working for you, I had to become the person you wanted me to be. The next minute, to that person. So all of a sudden, I lost who I was. I didn't know who I was no more. And this is the way my life, and I was in and out of jail. In 2000, after 4 years, I came back to Ireland. I came back to Ireland. I didn't want to come back, but I came back to get away from everything over there. I was up in a big trial. I should have got life. The case collapsed, and I got a not guilty on it. And that was my opportunity. I'm out of here. And I came back. But, you know what I mean? I came back with that gang mentality. I came back to where, you know what I mean? I know how to make money. I'm not that, you know what I mean, that innocent child that I was when I left. I'm a somebody now. And I came back. And I came back with the thinking, I'm coming back and I'm taking Ireland. Everybody that has hurt me, you watch, because I've got that now. You will not bully me, I will bully you. And I came back and I got involved in gangs, and you know, I got so heavy that, you know, I've seen friends being shot in front of me. I've had people burst through my house. I had to jump out a window. They were going to shoot me. They took shots at me. Praise the Lord. You know what I mean? And, you know, it's just, I got so messed up. I became a drug dealer. I was dealing in serious way. In 2004, I was caught with 1.5 million worth of drugs. I was sent to Portlaoise prison. I went to. I was sent to Portlaoise prison. I went there for years. I got out in 2013. And again, when I was in there, I was in maximum security. So now I had met higher level criminals. So now when I came out, it was higher. And as I moved out, my mom remained in England. She was dying of cancer. She got diagnosed with cancer. And I was only out of jail, and I hated my mom. I was, but when I heard it first, you know what I mean? God forgive me. I was like, you know what? Brilliant. This is how we get rid of her. And I had no interest, but you know what I mean? But my heart was, just go over to her. Just go over. So I went over and to visit her, and she looked terrible. So she was diagnosed. She died within 6 weeks of being diagnosed with cancer. And I remember I came over and I seen her, and I tried to have a talk with her. All I wanted my mum to do was say sorry. Just say sorry. Just, you know what I mean? Just give me something. Just give me something. My mum's never bought me a Christmas present, a birthday present, never told me she loves me, nothing. Never had any of that as a kid. Never had any of that. And I was just sorry. Just give me that. And we sat there, and you know, I tried to get it out of her, and there was nothing. This was our last conversation, and there was nothing. And the one thing she says, I blame myself for the way that you turned out. And you know, man, that's not it. It's sorry. So I came home, and I said I'd be back over in 2 weeks. Within them 2 weeks, she went into hospital. I came over. She was in the bed. She was gone. She was like, you know what I mean? There was no life in her. But, you know, there was something inside me that was just, you know what I mean? Even though she wasn't there for me, just be there for her. Just be there. And I stayed over there for that week. And I went up to her, and it was just, you know what I mean? She didn't even know if I was there or not. And the night before she died, I said to the doctor, I said, like, what's the story? How long have we got here? And he said, 6 months. 6 months. And I said, okay, 6 months, okay, we'll try do something, we'll try work out, get her home. I wanted her to die at home. So I was shopping that day in London, and I went to my mum after. And I was sitting there all day with her, and nothing. I was going, it was 8 o'clock and I had to go, and I walked downstairs and I forgot the bag. And I walked back up into the room, and I picked up the bag. And as I turned around to go to the door, my mum sat up in the bed. And she says, oh, there you are, son. Are you going? And I was like, yeah. I said, Mom, I'm going, but I'll be back tomorrow. And she was like, okay, love, go on. And I went. Now I went home, and in my mum's house I found our bag of tablets. and it's just loads of Valium, everything, and I took them. I took handfuls of them because it was just everything, and I was just like, here I am. And what was annoying me was, why am I here? Why am I here for her? Why? She doesn't deserve that. So I took tablets, and I was to be up there. I was to be up to the hospital for 3 o'clock, and I didn't. Took the tablets, so I was late. I got there about 3:45, and when I got in, the doctors were running to me, going, "Come on, quick, 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 quick!" And I was like, "What?" And they said, "She's going, she's going." I said, "What do you mean she's going?" And I walked in, and my mum was there, and I went over, and I grabbed my mum's hand, and I said, "I'm here, mum, I'm here." And now I had taken drugs, so I was all confused, and my ma mumbled, and she took her last breath and died. And it was just, for me, it was just another excuse for somebody leaving me. Oh, even now you can't even be here for me. And I just came back to Ireland, and I came back that's it, I've nothing now. I've nothing, even though I hate my mum, I still had something in my life. Now I've nothing. I've absolutely nothing. So I came back, and I went worse. I got more violent, I got more aggressive. You know what I mean? Things got so bad that I got a table, I put a rope around the attic, the beam of the attic, and I stood on the table, and I put the rope around my neck, and I tried to kill myself. I said, I can't do this no more. And I kept kicking that table. Now, when you're up with a rope around your neck, and I was up there for about 20 minutes, that's a lifetime. That feels like a lifetime when you've a rope around your neck. And trust me, I tried to kick and kick and kick that table, and that table wouldn't go over. It wouldn't go over. So after I got down and I started to inject drugs more, and I didn't care if it killed me. I had met a man on my last sentence in prison, a man called David Maloney. Now, David Maloney was a well-known gangster, if you want to say, in Dublin, and he was heavily involved in the IRA. People used to talk about him to me before I even met him, and they were petrified. These were top gangsters, and they were petrified of him. We went to Shelton Abbey, an open prison, and I met this fella, and I heard the prison officer read out the name, and I went, are you David Maloney, you friends? And I mentioned a couple of names. He's like, yeah. And I was like, I was petrified of this fella. I was petrified of him. I wasn't afraid of anybody, but this fella I was, because I heard so much about him. And we both got out, and we started to do stuff. And then when my mum, after my mum's death, I was that messed up, I started to go my own way, and I hadn't seen him in a few years. Then in 2017, he got in touch with me. So this was a gap of, maybe 14, 15, he said about 3 or 4 years gap, and he got in touch with me, and he says, oh, how are you doing? And I was like, oh no, this fella wants me to do all sorts, he's going to get me killed. And he says, I'm a Christian. And I went, a Christian? And he goes, yeah. And I said, yeah, and I'm the Pope. And I was like, a Christian. And he goes, look at my Facebook page. So I did. You know what I mean? I've done a roar.